A good education means nothing if the child loses their safety, their joy, or their life in the process. Let this story remind us all. A child needs protection, not just opportunity. No dream is worth a child's suffering. The sun rose over the red hills of Aguma, spreading a faint gold light over the clay rooftops and quiet farmlands. Roosters crowed in the distance, and the morning mist wrapped the earth like a secret the day was yet to tell. Inside a small hut at the edge of the village, a young woman stirred a pot of corn porridge over the fire. Her face, though beautiful, carried a weight that seemed too heavy for her thin shoulders. "Mama, is it true I'm going to the city today?" a tiny voice asked. It was Ochanya, barefoot, her eyes bright like river stones, her smile unbroken by the poverty that surrounded her. She was only 5, but her laughter often filled the compound like a song. Her mother, Rose, turned and managed a smile. "Yes, my sunshine. You'll go to the city with your Aunt Felicia. There are good schools there. You'll learn to read and write and become everything your father and I could not." Ochanya's small hands clapped in delight. "Will I come back soon?" "Soon," her mother whispered, hiding the tremor in her voice. "Very soon." There was no school in Aguma. The old classroom had fallen years ago, and the nearest one was miles away, too far for a child of 5 to walk every morning. So when her elder sister, Felicia, visited from the city and offered to take Ochanya, it had felt like a blessing. "She will stay with me," Felicia had said. "There's a good school near our home. I'll take care of her like my own." Rose believed her. After all, they shared the same blood. By noon, the old bus that would take Ochanya to the city arrived, rattling like a tired drum. The child held her small bag close. A bag with 2 dresses, 1 pair of slippers, and a wooden slate her father carved for her. Rose knelt and hugged her tightly. "Be good, my daughter. Listen to your aunt. Pray every night." Ochanya nodded, her small face pressed against her mother's chest. "I will, Mama." The bus honked impatiently, and the child was lifted aboard. Through the window, she waved as the road swallowed the village, her mother's figure growing smaller and smaller until it became part of the dusty horizon. The journey to the city took hours. Ochanya watched the world pass by, trees giving way to tarred roads, motorcycles replaced by cars, and the noise of the city swallowing her sense of wonder. When they arrived, Aunt Felicia's compound stood tall, painted white with iron gates. It was unlike anything Ochanya had ever seen. Inside were polished floors, wide halls, and shiny furniture that reflected her image. But something about the house felt cold. Too neat, too quiet, too watchful. "From today, you'll be a good girl," Aunt Felicia said, handing her a small mop. "You'll help me in the mornings before school." "Yes, Auntie," Ochanya replied cheerfully, though she didn't quite understand. Days turned into weeks. The excitement of the city began to fade. The school Aunt Felicia promised never came. "Soon," her aunt would say, "we're still arranging it." But instead of notebooks, Ochanya was given buckets and brooms. She swept the long corridors, washed dishes, and polished the car until her tiny arms ached. When she cried, her aunt would scold her. "Don't behave like a village girl. You should be grateful you're here." At first, Ochanya believed her. She thought maybe all children worked this hard. But when her cousins went off to school every morning, dressed neatly with shiny shoes, she realized something was wrong. One evening, after a long day of scrubbing floors, she whispered to her aunt, "Auntie, when will I start school?" Felicia barely looked up from her phone. "Soon. Stop asking me." So Ochanya stopped asking. She swallowed her dreams like bitter medicine, hoping one day she'd earn the right to learn. She was 6 when her aunt's tone began to change, from indifference to irritation. "Didn't I tell you to finish the laundry? Why is there still sand on the veranda? You lazy child." Sometimes the woman would slap her for the smallest mistake. Her cousins laughed, calling her the house girl. Ochanya's eyes would fill, but she never answered back. Mama had told her to be good. At night, when the house slept, she'd curl on a thin mat near the kitchen and whisper to herself, "Mama said I came here for school." Maybe tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow never came. When she turned 8, the chores grew heavier. She fetched water from the well, cooked for the entire family, and washed clothes until her fingers turned pale. Still, she smiled when she remembered home, her mother's laughter, her father's gentle humming as he repaired baskets under the mango tree. And then came the silence, the kind that hides evil behind closed doors. It started with footsteps. Late one night, when the air was thick with the smell of rain and soap, Ochanya heard someone enter the kitchen. She thought it was Aunt Felicia checking if she'd finished her chores. But it wasn't. It was her cousin, a grown man of 25, tall and heavy. He smiled, but there was something wrong with the way his eyes moved. He told her to be quiet, that if she made a sound, her aunt would send her back to the village. From that night on, her world changed. The house that once only hurt her with words and labor began to hurt her in ways she couldn't name. Her cousin visited when everyone slept, his whispers filling the dark like poison. Ochanya was too small to understand, too scared to speak. When she tried to tell her aunt, Felicia's face hardened. "Don't ever say such a thing in my house again," she hissed. "But Auntie, enough. You're lying. You want to destroy my family?" From then on, silence became Okanya's prison. The woman who was meant to protect her became her judge, covering the truth like dust under a rug. And soon, the uncle, Felicia's husband, began to look at her in that same strange way. He would call her into his room under the guise of sending her on errands. "Close the door," he would say. "If you tell anyone, I'll find you wherever you hide." The words stuck in her mind like nails. "I'll find you wherever you hide." The threats kept her quiet. The pain made her fragile. The world became a blur of chores, fear, and darkness. Years passed like shadows. By the time Ochanya turned 12, her laughter had disappeared completely. She no longer looked at the mirror. She no longer dreamed about school. Her eyes had lost their light. Then came the illness. First it was just stomach pain, then weakness, then fevers that refused to go away. Aunt Felicia gave her herbs, then painkillers, then ignored her altogether when she couldn't get out of bed. "You're pretending," the woman said. "Lazy girl." But when Ochanya collapsed one afternoon while washing the bathroom, even Felicia panicked. She called her husband, who insisted they take the girl to the hospital. At the city clinic, the nurses gasped when they saw her condition. The child's body was frail, her skin pale, her eyes sunken. After tests and whispers in the corridor, the doctor came out, his expression grim. "This girl," he said quietly, "has been deeply hurt. For a long time." Felicia froze. Her husband's eyes darkened. They exchanged glances, fear flashing between them like lightning. "Please, doctor," the man said quickly. "Keep this quiet. We'll handle it." But the doctor didn't. He called the authorities. He called Okanya's parents. When Mama Rose received the call, she dropped the calabash she was holding. Her hands trembled. "Hospital? What happened to my daughter?" By nightfall, she and her husband were on a night bus to the city. The journey felt endless. Every second was a stone pressing against her heart. At dawn, they arrived at the hospital. And there, on a white bed, surrounded by tubes, lay their child. Thin, weak, broken. Her eyes, once bright like morning stars, were dim but alive enough to see her mother. "Mama," she whispered. Mama Rose fell to her knees beside the bed. "Ochanya, my child, what happened?" Tears slid down the girl's cheeks. "Mama, they hurt me, all the time. I told Auntie, but she didn't help me. She said I should keep quiet." The room fell silent. Even the machines seemed to pause. Felicia stood by the doorway, her face pale, her lips trembling. "Is it true?" Mama Rose asked her sister. "My daughter lived in your house all these years, and this happened under your roof?" Felicia's eyes hardened. "Do you have proof of what you're saying? Do you have evidence?" Those words cut deeper than any blade. Mama Rose looked at her in disbelief. "Evidence? She's lying there fighting for her life." The doctors tried everything. They treated her infections, prayed over her, and gave her the best care they could. But her small body had endured too much pain, too much silence. Days later, in the quiet of the hospital ward, Ochanya's breathing slowed. She turned to her mother and whispered her last words, "Mama, I just wanted to learn." Then the light in her eyes faded. The wail that followed shook the ward. Mama Rose cried until her voice broke, until her soul felt hollow. Her husband stood frozen, tears rolling down his face like rain on stone. They took their daughter home in a small coffin, the same road she had once traveled, waving joyfully from the bus window. The same road her mother had believed would lead to light. The village mourned. The story spread, how a little girl went to the city for education and returned in silence. Mama Rose could not rest. She went from police stations to courts, from NGOs to journalists, crying for justice. But the case dragged. The man responsible had money, connections, and influence. He paid, and doors closed. Files disappeared. Witnesses withdrew. Lack of evidence, they told her. Every word was a stone on her chest. Her grief turned to fury. Her pain became a voice. She stood before the local council one day, her hands shaking but her eyes burning. "My daughter is gone because we keep protecting evil. We say it's family matter. We say it's shameful to talk. But how many more children must suffer in silence?" Her cries reached the streets, the airwaves, the hearts of mothers who had daughters of their own. People began to whisper Ochanya's name, not as a victim, but as a symbol, a voice that refused to be buried. And somewhere in the wind, Mama Rose could almost hear her daughter's laughter again. Not from pain but from peace, from justice still waiting to be born. Dear parents and guardians, in the name of giving our children better opportunities, many of us send them away to live with relatives, friends, or guardians in the city, hoping they'll find education, safety, and a brighter future. But too often, behind closed doors, those same children suffer in silence. Overworked, neglected, and sometimes deeply harmed. Their small voices are drowned out by fear, shame, and the belief that family matters should stay hidden. This story is not just a story. It is a mirror, reflecting what too many children face when love is replaced with cruelty,